turn I have taken turned out not to be wrong. It just took the long route to find where I belong. The mistake was never wasted. It was quietly becoming the kind of knowledge you can't learn without the stumbling. So I stopped calling them failures and started calling them mine. The way through is not always forward, sometimes it's the fall. The way through is not always graceful, sometimes it's giving all. The wrong turns, the detours, the things that didn't go. The way through was always working even when you couldn't know. It's the way through. I used to be afraid of trying in case I didn't land, but the falling has a teaching I couldn't understand. From a safe and steady distance, I needed to be in it. The mess, the getting back up, something there begins it. And every start again is a start that knows more. The way through is not always certain, sometimes it's the guess. The way through is not always perfect, sometimes it's the mess. You were never meant to get it right the very first time. The way through has always been yours, winding, slow and fine. It's always the way through. The seed doesn't argue with the soil about how long things take. It just keeps doing what seeds do and waits for what will wake. I've been learning from the growing that happens underground, before there is a single sign that anything's been found. Invisible is not the same as nothing. Something's always moving, still growing, even when you cannot see it. Still growing, even when you don't believe it. The work you do in quiet, the effort no one claps for. Still growing is not staying still. Still growing is the part that lasts long after the result appears. Still growing. I've been impatient with the waiting, like the work was being wasted. But the things I nearly quit on were the sweetest when I tasted the result in its own timing. The harvest of the steady and the person I became from simply staying ready. You don't have to see it to believe it's there. Still growing, roots before the branches, still growing through the long advances of a life that's taking shape beneath the visible and known. Still growing is how forests start, still growing from the smallest, darkest part of a seed that kept on trusting, still growing. I've been standing at the edge of more than one decision, and the fear and the excitement felt the same with some revision. Someone told me once, the ones that scare you and delight you are the ones that mean you're going somewhere the real you invited. So when the heart leaps up, that's the direction. Take the leap toward the thing that moves you. Take the leap toward whatever proves you more yourself than the careful choice, more alive than the safe one. Take the leap, you were made for this. Take the leap toward the terrifying bliss of following what your heart said first. Take the leap. The logical path has its virtues. I've walked it, I have seen. But the things that I am proudest of required something in between. The logic and the longing, the plan and the desire. The leap was where the two became one particular fire. And the fire is worth the falling that comes before the wing. Take the leap, the heart knows before the thinking. Take the leap past the edge of overthinking. There is something on the other side that's been waiting for you. Take the leap, you've been ready longer. Take the leap, then you let yourself believe the leap was always yours to take. Take the leap. I've watched the ones who quit too early never find the thing they wanted, and the ones who kept on going were the ones who weren't so daunted. not because they had no doubts, not because the road was clearer, just because they stayed long enough for the picture to get nearer. The long game is the only game that has an honest prize. The long game is where the real things live. The long game is what the small days give, when added up to months and years of showing up regardless. The long game turns the quiet work to something. The long game doesn't ask for sharpness, just the will to keep on going. The long game. There's a version of success that everyone can see, and a version that grows slowly inside of you and me. The second kind is harder to convince yourself is there, but the long game builds the kind of life you actually want to wear. So give it more time than you think it needs. The long game doesn't shout about its progress. The long game keeps its own good promise to the ones who stay committed past the point of easy. The long game has a way of paying back. The long game in a way that hits so deeply you forget you ever doubted. The long game. Started more things over than I finished all the way, and I used to wear that number like a shame I'd have to pay. But starting over means you haven't given up the whole idea. It means you're still invested, you're still choosing to be here. Every new beginning began with someone starting over. Start again. It's not the same as failing. Start again. The ship is still worth sailing. Even if the first few tries didn't take you where you thought. Start again, because the trying is teaching you for what you've got in the next and better version. Start again. The ones we most admire, they started over more than once. They didn't get it right the first time, and they weren't afraid to front. The page that starts again with something better than what came before. Starting over is the bravest kind of opening a door. And every start again is already further than the last. Start again with everything you've gathered. Start again, nothing has been wasted. Every version that didn't work informed the one that will. Start again, because the dreaming is a living, breathing thing, and living things begin again. Start again. Not yet doesn't mean it's over. Not yet doesn't mean it's done. Not yet is where the growing happens, in the waiting for the sun. I've confused not yet with never more times than I should admit, and given up on things that only needed more of the commit. Not yet is still an answer. It's the most honest one there is. Not yet is not never. Not yet means it's coming. Not yet is the river, still and slowly running toward the sea it's always known. At the pace the water flows. Not yet is not never. It's the part before the something blooms that you've been planting. Not yet is not never. The timing of a life doesn't match the world's impatience, and the things that come in their own time carry a particular patience built into the wanting, built into the weight. Not yet holds in its hands the gift that comes at its own late. Trust the not yet as you've trusted anything. Not yet is not never. It's the long and honest answer. Not yet is not never. It's the slightly later dancer, arriving when the floor is ready, arriving when you're ready to. Not yet is not never, and the timing may be. Not yet is not never, exactly made for you in ways you can't see from the waiting. Not yet is not never. Every canvas I've admired had its share of painted over. Every song that moved me deeply had its drafts before it was discovered to be the thing I'd hear one day and feel like it was always whole. But wholeness is the last step, not the starting place of the soul. The mess is not the enemy. The mess is where it starts. The mess before the masterpiece is where the real work lives. The mess before the masterpiece is what the process gives. Before the thing is beautiful, before the thing is clear, the mess before the masterpiece is how you know you're near to something that will matter. The mess before the masterpiece. I've been afraid to show the in-between, the rough, the half-done, the uncertain. But the in-between is where the learning lies before the final curtain. And showing up inside the mess is braver than the finished version, because the mess requires the leap before the working. So I make peace with the untidy middle of my art. The mess before the masterpiece is not a sign of failure. The mess before the masterpiece is where you become the maker of something worth the effort, worth the time it took to find. The mess before the masterpiece is the truest kind of mind, at work and in the making. The mess before the masterpiece. One day of trying everything is worth much less than I thought. One day of maximum effort fades before it's caught. But one small thing repeated, soft and certain, day by day, builds a kind of life that one big day can never lay. The secret is the ordinary, done extraordinarily long. Consistency, the unsexy truth of growing. Consistency, you keep the river flowing, drop by drop and day by day. The canyon is the proof. Consistency is how the small things build to something. Consistency Consistency, the quiet kind of doing, without waiting for the feeling. Consistency. I've waited for the motivation to arrive before I start, but motivation follows action, not the other way. My heart, the days I didn't feel like it and did it anyway, those were the days that built me, not the inspired days. Do the thing, the feeling comes, not before but after. Consistency is the compound interest of effort. Consistency is the brick by brick of structure that becomes the house you live in. Years from now, look back. Consistency is what you'll thank yourself for. Consistency, the quiet daily practice of the thing you're building with your life. Consistency. Notice that the things I want are often past the thing I fear, and fear has been the gatekeeper that kept me standing here. Just before the threshold of the version of the life that I could have if I could only step through the fear like light. The fear is not the wall, the fear is just the door. The fear and the door are closer than you think. The fear and the door stand right there at the brink of everything you've wanted, and the wanting is the sign. The fear and the door are on the same good line. You were made to walk through both, the fear and the door. It won't stop feeling scary when you finally make the move. It will feel a little lighter once you've found your groove. But the first step through the fear is the one you have to take before the second easier one that the first one helps to make. On the other side of fear is usually the life. The fear and the door, I'm trying to stop you. The fear and the door are trying to drop you into the next and better chapter waiting on the other side. fear in the door. I measured my progress by others and wondered why I fell behind. But we were running different races on roads of different kinds. And when I measured it by yesterday, by only where I'd been, the distance I had actually covered was more than I had seen. Slow progress is not no progress. Look at how far you've come. Slow progress is still arriving somewhere. Slow progress is still getting there without the rush, without the shortcut through the long and honest road. Slow progress carries more than speed does. Slow progress carries what it knows from every step that built the last one. Slow progress. The mountain doesn't care how quickly you ascend. It only matters that you're climbing and that you don't pretend. The view is not about the timing, it's about the choice to keep on. And slow is not a lesser kind of going, it's a truer kind of seeking. One step more than yesterday is the only math you need. Slow progress doesn't need to justify the pace. Slow progress wins the most important race of building something solid, something rooted in the real. Slow progress is a different kind of fast. Slow progress is the kind that's built to last when every other version has already passed. Slow progress. I took the road that wasn't right and found a better one. I lost the job I thought I needed and became someone who understood herself more clearly, past the loss and the adjustment. Wrong turns have a way of teaching what the right ones couldn't mention. Every wrong turn was still a turn, and every turn moved me. Wrong turns welcome, they've been helping all along. Wrong turns welcome, they've been writing a better song than the one I had planned, with the route I thought where the real discoveries are found, off the path I drew. The version of my life I planned at 20-something young would have been a smaller story than the one I've since begun. Because the plans I made then couldn't know what I'd discover in the places I had labeled detour, setback, cover. Over for a reason that became the reason I arrived here. Wrong turns welcome, they brought you to this version. Wrong turns welcome, they gave you the excursion. Through the places the shortcut misses, through the landscape only the lost find. Wrong turns welcome, and wherever you landed, wrong turns welcome is exactly where your mind started asking better questions. Wrong turns welcome. I've been watching someone else's window while my garden goes unwatched. Someone else's timeline while my own has not been matched to the life I thought I wanted, which looked a lot like theirs. And I forgot that I was building something different down the stairs. The comparison was borrowing someone else's measure. Comparison is noise in the music of your life. Comparison is noise, it cuts like a quiet knife through the thread of what you're making and replaces it with doubt. Comparison is noise, and you can turn it lower. Comparison is noise until it all but fades out, and the only voice that's left is yours. There is no identical road, no two people take the same, and the comparing was the thing that slowly made me lame. And the left foot of my confidence and the forward foot of trying. And when I stopped comparing, I started really flying. Your life is the original, there is no comparison. Comparison is noise, and your signal is so clear. Comparison is noise when you choose to only was never part of your race. And when it gets too loud, comparison is noise. Just turn it down. I've been looking for the answer in every voice but my own. I've been crowdsourcing my direction and ending up alone in the middle of their opinions, lost from what I knew. And what I knew was quiet, but it was true. The loudest voice is rarely the most reliable one. Trust yourself more than you've been trusting. Trust yourself through the doubt and adjusting. You have lived enough to know things that no one else has lived. Trust yourself, you were the answer. Trust yourself, you were always equipped to find your way through the uncertain. Trust yourself. The instinct that I silenced to be more logical turned out to be the version most reliably factual about the life I was supposed to build, the choices meant for me. And every time I listened to it, it set something free. The quiet knowing is the oldest kind of compass. Trust yourself, you know more than you're letting on. Trust yourself, what feels like a guess is often strong and clear if you would only hear it without the editing. Trust yourself, your instincts are your history. Trust yourself, of every guess that's ever been made right, your own has always led you here. Trust yourself. Pages that are half done. I have plans that have stalled. I have versions of a vision that never quite were called into the completed final form I imagined they would take. And maybe that's the honest shape that some things are born to make. Finished isn't always better. Unfinished has its own truth. The unfinished is fine. It means you're still in it. The unfinished is fine. You haven't reached the limit of of what this thing can become, because you haven't forced the ending. The unfinished is fine, it leaves the door open. The unfinished is fine for something worth the defending, of an idea still alive. The unfinished is fine. The most alive of conversations are the ones that haven't ended. The most alive of relationships are still and beautifully tended. The most alive of lives I know are still in progress, still discovering. And unfinished is the word I give to anything worth covering, in patience and in time, and in the returning to it. The unfinished is fine. It is not the sign of failure. The unfinished is fine. You are still the maker of something that is choosing its own shape and its own time. The unfinished is fine, and so are you inside it. The unfinished is fine, and when it's done you'll find it was exactly right for waiting. The unfinished is fine. I've been carrying tomorrow on the back of today, and wondering why the weight of the present felt so heavy on the way. But tomorrow isn't here yet, and today's already done. So much of what I worried through turned out to be none. Today was enough to carry, and today I carried it. Enough for today is an honest kind of victory. Enough for today is its own small history of someone who showed up and did the thing they could. Enough for today is not settling for less. Enough for today is how the best of any life gets built. Enough for today. The grand ambition has its place in the larger arc of things, but the only day that I can live is the particular one that brings itself to me each morning with its ordinary tasks, and doing them with full presence is the most that any day asks, and meeting the day fully is the whole of a day's work. Enough for today. The rest can wait until tomorrow. Enough for today. No need to beg or borrow energy from days you haven't lived yet. Give it all to this one. Enough for today is how the work gets done. Enough for today is how the life gets won, in small and daily increments. Enough for today. I would not be who I am if everything had gone to plan. The version of me that never failed would be the shallower woman, without the depth that comes from falling, without the knowledge of the floor, without the knowing that I can get up because I've done it before. The failures were the curriculum I didn't know I'd signed for. What failure teaches, you cannot learn from winning. What failure teaches is the deepest kind of beginning, of a self that knows its edges and knows how far it bends. What failure teaches lives in you forever. What failure teaches gives you what it spends on the education of the trying. What failure teaches. I've refrained my greatest stumbles as the places where I grew, the most substantial rooted kind of growth that saw me through. And what I thought was ending turned out to be instruction on how to build the next thing from the previous construction. So I thank the things that broke me for the things that made me whole. What failure teaches can't be bought at any price. What failure teaches is a different kind of advice from any voice that's only known the smooth and easy path. What failure teaches is the compound interest of every difficult chapter and its aftermath. What failure teaches lasts. I've measured the distance wrong from most of what I've tried. I measured it against perfection, not against the size of yesterday's position, not against the starting line. And every time the view was discouraging because I used the wrong design. Forward is forward, no matter what the speed. Forward is forward, even when it's slow. Forward is forward, when you barely feel you go. Past the stuck in heavy places, past the days with no momentum. Forward is forward, and it counts. Forward is forward, and it mounts into something you'll look back on and call progress. A crawl is not a failure, it's a style of moving through. And some of the most beautiful arrivals came after the slowest view of the path ahead is hopeless, turned out to be the scenic route towards something worth the slower walking, worth the detour. The pace is not the point, the direction is. Forward is forward, whether sprint or stumble. Forward is forward, through the proud and the humble days of showing up regardless and doing what you can. Forward is forward, and you're doing it. Forward is forward, that's the entire plan. To keep on going forward. Forward is forward. Rushed the things that needed time to find their shape. I have pushed the things that needed space to slowly drape themselves across the truth of them and find the form they meant. And rushing cost me something patience would have lent. Time isn't wasted when you're giving things their room. Let it take its time. The right things come when ready. Let it take its time, and keep your hands on steady. You can't force the seed to flower on a schedule that you made. Let it take its time. The results are in the process. Let it take its time, and trust the quiet trade of effort now for harvest later. Let it take its time. There's a difference between patience and just waiting for something. Patience is the active trust that what you're doing is enough, and the results are on their way in the timing that they're meant for. And the work you do right now is exactly what it's sent for. The growing happens in the quiet, not in the rush, and let it take its time, because the good things take the longest. Let it take its time. The roots grow deepest, strongest, when allowed to find their water, without the hand that forces. Let it take its time, and you'll arrive at something. Let it take its time, that no shortcut courses could have ever brought you to as well. Let it take its time. The bravest thing isn't always the one that makes the news. Sometimes it's picking up the day and choosing not to lose the thread of what you're building when you'd rather let it go. The bravest thing is often quiet daily show of turning up for ordinary things with an extraordinary heart. The brave ordinary, the kind no one records. The brave ordinary, the private kind of tour, something that matters, something built day after day. The brave ordinary is the backbone of the bigger. The brave ordinary makes the larger and the louder things possible. It takes a courage most don't mention to begin again in plain, to show up unspectacularly and try without the fame of anything to prove it's working. Only the belief that what you do in the invisible gives the larger work relief, and the ordinary day well lived is the extraordinary life. The brave ordinary, the daily unannounced. The brave ordinary, the kind that can't be bounced by the louder voice that says this doesn't count, go bigger. The brave ordinary is the deepest kind of bigger. The brave ordinary is what the heart delivers when it's committed to the work. The brave ordinary. song was written for the ones who almost didn't make it, for the ones who kept on trying, even when they nearly faked it, through a day that had them wondering if the whole thing was worth the cost. This song is for the ones who kept on, even when they thought they'd lost. You kept on, and that is everything. This is your song, the one that the music made for you. This is your song, the whole imperfect truth, and still unfinished version of a life worth every note. This is your song, and it's still playing. This is your song, still afloat in everything you've carried. This is your song. I've been singing to the quiet ones who do the work in the dark, who plant the seeds and water them without the audience or the spark of anyone to witness it, but still show up and tend. The song is for the long game players, the ones who see it to the end, or if not the end, at least another day. This is your song for the brave and the continuing. This is your song for the ones still discovering that the life they've built in patience was the one they were born to live. This is your song, and it keeps on going. This is your song, and it has more to give than you have let yourself imagine. This is your song. The failures, the detours, the fears and the doubt, the long way, the wrong turns, the figuring out, the quiet, the steady, the one more try. You were always worth the music. You were always worth the time. This is your song, and you were always worthy of it. This is your song, and there is nothing but love in it for everyone who kept on going, who refused to let it go. This is your song, and it was always yours. This is your song from the very start to here. Every note was written just for you. This is your song, now and always. This is your song.